Good evening, everyone. I will call the Financial Services meeting to order. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. First, we need approval of tonight's agenda. Moved by Councillor Boyle, seconded by Councillor Elliott. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Next, we have emergency resolutions, and of course, majority consent is required. Is there any emergency resolutions this evening? Okay, seeing none, we'll move along. Any errors and omission corrections to the minutes of February 20th? Any errors and omissions or corrections to the minutes of February 20th? And any errors, omissions, corrections to the minutes of February 20th? Seeing none, we'll consider those minutes approved. First, we have correspondence from the North Nova. It's a request for funding for graduation expenses, and we're actually going to deal with that later on this evening in action item 10D. So I think we'll move along with that this evening and deal with that down there. This evening, we have a presentation from the New Glasgow Farmers Market. Christy Russell will present the proposal for the new market. The NGFM has asked for a letter of support from council, okay, for this evening. All right, so come on up. Hi.
You want me to stand here?
Just right here.
Okay.
So welcome.
All right. So hi, I'm Christy Russell. I'm market manager for the New Glasgow Farmers Market. I brought with me Michelle. She's our fund development lead, and she's on with us until July of this year. So I wanted to give you a bit more information. We did watch council proceedings and the concerns there last week, or the last time you were in session. So we're addressing a lot of those points this evening. So we'll move on to the next slide. So we are, I'll tell you a bit about us. We are a nonprofit organization. We have been in operation officially since 2008. We were incorporated in 2009. We are an independent nonprofit organization, meaning we run ourselves. We are independent that way. We offer a low-cost, low-risk venue for small businesses, and we welcome an average of 1,700 visitors during the peak season every Saturday morning. We supported in 2023 more than 150 small businesses, farms, and entrepreneurs. Of vendors so far this year, 28% of those reside or conduct business in the Municipality of Pictou County. That is the highest percentage out of all the towns and the county. Next slide. So why are we doing this raise the barn thing? Because we have some challenges. So the challenge one being that the dome is a seasonal structure. It is got about a 10-year lifespan, and we are on year 14. We took on some damage and sustained some damage from Fiona. It wasn't fatal, but it did cause some issues. We're being held together by a wing and a prayer on the building. If we lose the dome, we lose 50% of our capacity. We go back 10 years. And we negatively affect the livelihoods of minimum 50% of our vendors. We lose important revenue streams that we rely on for operations. And also we have our year-round building. The building is currently not adequate for our current needs. We do have electrical challenges in both buildings. And we have outgrown the space, and we have a vendor retention risk. So we have to currently downsize in the shoulder season. That means I have to tell people they can't come. Recently, we've opened the dome earlier. Last year, I think it was January 28th. It was a little chilly in there. This year, it was the first weekend in February. And people were just given the choice. They said, we want to come, so I open it, and whoever wants to come, comes. We also do not have an eating space. We don't have room for it. And the impacts of the shoulder season means that it also affects our revenue and our traffic flow because we have nowhere for people to sit when they come and shop with us. So they're in and out when it's cold. And the next slide. So I want to go through just a couple of the highlights of the building. So this would have been in the business plan that you had for your last session. So number one, purposeful landscaping. So by everyone in the county, not just the farmer's market. So purposeful landscaping provides additional vendor and event space. So we do plan on using this more than one day a week. There are fold-up garage-style doors on the front. This allows shelter for our farmers, provides shade, and also wind eliminating or reducing the use of tents and their costly replacement. We have light filtering panels. The reason those are there is to provide passive solar, make it energy efficient as much as possible, and keep the light open and airy feeling that the dome has. The farm store is a small store. It's not a grocery store. It is meant to support our farmers. So in challenges of weather, when we have things like Fiona and we have Dorian and we have all these other wind events and inclement events, a farmer is faced with the choice of crossing their fingers and preparing the best that they can, or a lot of times they'll over-harvest to try and salvage the crop before the storm comes. So then they're left with, how do they get the product to market? That's where this place comes in. So somebody says, listen, I harvested a whole bunch of whatever, or I have a whole bunch of peppers and I need to get rid of them. We have the opportunity to say, okay, let's have a pop-up shop, and we advertise, and we're able to help get that out to the public quickly without a lot of red tape. Also, it gives us the ability, and we are already have this model in the dome. It's just with the temperature instability and the fact that the dome is essentially a tent, it's not secure. So we've been able to carry products up here that we can't get vendors. They don't have the overhead, they don't have the staff. So things like cider, apple cider from the valley, we bring it in from a farm down there. We get it wholesale from him, and he gets his product, and our community gets apple cider from a farm. So he's not gonna come up from the valley and staff a table, but we're still able to support that farmer with the product. So the store is also for local farmers as well. So it's not just farmers that shop at the market or that are vend at the market. We'll be able to take on more things as well with that farm store. Next slide. So Riverside exterior. So the plan includes a whole comprehensive outside gathering space. So that's the space where the hill is next to the dome now. That would all be graded, and this would allow for an amphitheater gathering space. So we do have people that currently come down during the week on their lunch break and sit by the river and use that space. This space will be accessible all week long. And the glass side there as well allows in light and ventilation. It also allows us an indoor-outdoor busker space so that we have places for our musicians to play. And there's built-in seating, and also there's walking trails which are going to be extended. That's in the plan right now. So the plan will connect, or sort of those trails will connect to the existing path that goes behind the market. So it encourages healthy living, and also encourages people using the trail system to stop at the market or just hang out during a day that the market is not in operation. And next one. So the interior. So this was purposefully designed. So one, it's a gable structure, so that it's more flexible. There's not any real complicated roof lines or anything like that. So the biggest change here, you'll notice number one there is the food vendor space. Currently on the dome, we can take 4 vendors. This has been designed so we can actually triple the amount of vendors that we can take. So right now, I have 4. We pop breakers every week in both buildings. This will be able to house 12 people. I've already turned down 5 this year. And several of those are newcomers, because oftentimes they come and that's their go-to is food. So I no longer can take any more food vendors as it stands. High ceilings serve as a passive solar and makes it inviting and welcoming, so it doesn't feel closed in. Glass side entry, we already talked about that. The retractable windows, we already talked about that as well. In-floor electrical, so that we can have electrical in the middle of the space as well. And the open floor plan offers versatility not only for the market, but part of the operational plans is that we can have events in there, we can offer space, we have built in a storage space as well, so that we can offer that space to our community and other organizations on days that aren't market days. So our floor plan, I'm going to focus on the red ones. We already talked about farm store, that was number 1, the green one. Number office space. Currently, there is no office space. I'm based out of my home, except for Saturdays. So this will allow us to be more accessible to our vendors and to anybody else that needs market space. And also, by having that space, we can staff our own store without having to have a whole bunch of staff on hand. I can just do a lot of that while I'm working. So 3 right now is earmarked as a storage space, but also I'm really hoping to make that a cold storage, because that's one of the challenges our farmers have, and that will allow us to have produce during the shoulder seasons as well. 4 is storage space. Right now we have absolutely 0 storage space, so this will give us a place and a little bit of flexibility to put some things. 6 is a commercial kitchen, I think, is what I have down there. So we have the ability right now, we have our commercial kitchens maxed out. So this will actually allow us to have another 2 to 4 vendors. So that means that those people, oftentimes when they want to do prepared foods in order to meet the Department of Environment food regulations, they need to have a commercial kitchen, which Pictou County has very little commercial kitchen space. I've already talked about the food vendors, that's number 10. And number 8 is an eating area where people can sit in and eat during all year round. Or if I need to pull in farmers, I have the extra space to do that during inclement weather. Okay. So enhancements. Again, we have designed this to be more than a farmer's market. It is, we're looking to increase community events. We want it to be a center for arts, entertainment, and culture outside of market hours, and also a unique venue space that adds financial sustainability for the market. It will add us another amount of revenue stream and allow us to be, we are currently financially independent, but we kind of want to keep that going. Partnerships and programming. We will have the opportunity to explore community partnerships and programming that support local groups that are already in existence. Right now, we don't have the ability to be able to do that. The space will allow us to approach and pursue partnerships with organizations like Summer Street, who has a greenhouse program that's going. We have Viola's Place. There's lots of other ones that we've identified that would be in the business plan that you have as well. We will be able to provide programs for vulnerable sectors such as seniors, families, youth, and other people, and provide a space to learn and grow in our community.
Okay.
And I do have a couple of more points before you cut me off. It was a lot of points that I had to address. So food security. There was a concern that this program takes away, or that this project takes away from other important issues. I want to be clear, like, we're not taking away from homelessness. We're not taking away from other things. We're here to complement. We're not here to compete with anybody. We do actually do a lot on food security right now. Over the last 7 years, we've given out more than $120,000 in the county. Because it's spent with vendors, that actually has double impact. So that's actually a $240,000 economic impact. And we have served more than 145 food insecure households throughout Pictou County. What's going to improve with this space? We can increase that current program and expand it to other sectors. We can increase the access to those facing barriers by having the farm store. We have a lot of people that can't make it to the market on Saturday morning. So having a farm store that's open a couple of hours every day for probably Sunday through Tuesday or Wednesday, they'll be able to get their local food. We can partner with other organizations and assist vulnerable sectors through programming and explore other models of distribution as well. And I'm almost at the end, I promise. The other one is the money. So $7.1 million. The building itself is actually $4 million. That also includes a 30% contingency. So if you take that out, the building cost is $2.8 million. The hardscape, and that's all the stuff on the outside that I showed you, is $3 million. That also includes a 30% contingency. When you take that out, the cost is $2.1 million. So the total project cost without contingency is $4.9 million. The contributions and commitments, Municipality of Pictou County graciously donated $45,000. The town in Glasgow has a 10% commitment when we reach committed, what's the word? When we reach that phase, they will commit 10%. And the MGFM is also committed to 10%, which is $700,000. The money raised so far that we have raised, and this excludes the municipality's contribution, is $97,000. That's through community fundraising, donations, and grants. The money that we've spent so far is $46,000. That includes the conceptual drawings that you see here, as well as a Class D estimate, a full proposal. It also included a geotech survey of the existing dome foundation so that we could tell what was under it and what it would sustain as well before we move forward. The Class D is required to submit for any large funding or investment, so we have to have that funding. That's why that money was spent. We have to have that to access any large amounts of money. And all the money gets deposited into the Raise the Barn account. It is a general fundraising pot. The amounts go into the account, and they're not necessarily specifically earmarked for any specific portion of the project. And these are all the letters of support that we have from organizations as well as municipal, all the other municipalities, and as well as Sean Fraser and the federal government. As for the future ask, you know, I really hope that through this project that you really see the benefit of this community project and what it does. A large portion of your constituents live in the municipality, they do business in the municipality, and they go interchangeably throughout the towns. I don't want to come back and ask for money. I'm really hoping you're just going to say, how can we help and how can we support you? So that I don't have to come back and ask for money. And we're really trying to do the best that we can to raise as much as we can. Our goal is 10%, that's $700,000, and we're not going to stop there, we'll just keep going. So I'd like to thank you for your time, and I'm welcome to take any questions as well.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate your presentation. It was, you listened to our concerns, and we appreciate that. Okay, I'll open the floor up to questions, comments.
Yes, I'm wondering if you could give us some examples of the types of fundraising activities that you hope to pursue to raise your 10% or even more?
Yeah, sure. So we've already raised $97,000. A lot of that has also come from our own vendors. Our vendors support this project, so actually more than $2,500 and since July of last year has come in from our vendors themselves. We have also done a dream vacation fundraiser. Right now we have a fill the freezer, so we've actually purchased from our farmers $1,300 in total from our farmers, and are selling tickets on that. So the proceeds from that will then come back to the market. So we're paying our farmers for those prizes, and then all of that comes back to us. We have community events. We have a bingo night coming up. We have a book sale that we've been doing. Oh my goodness, and this is Michelle, so I'm going to let her take over.
Oh, we have a prom. Sorry, I have no voice, so that's why Christine's not talking. We have a prom dance night that we're going to host at the dome itself. We have other big things that we have in the works for the summer. Other raffles for next year. We will do 50-50 each month. That was run through raffle box. So that's how we come up with that $97,000 amount so far, and that's just going to keep growing. So.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Warden Murray?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is, it's no problem putting a building up and spending $7 or $5 million. What, in the future, how are you going to run this?
Right.
Where's the money going to
That's a
come
good
to keep
question.
it going?
So basically, some of what we're already doing is going to continue and expand. So for instance, we already have the farm store, but I can't bring in fresh product because the dome freezes and the dome gets too hot. It's also not secure, so we're susceptible to people breaking in, that sort of thing. So that will be expanded. It will also be open on days other than Saturday. We actually increase our vendor space. So right now, a majority of our revenue comes in from table fees, membership fees, So we'll be able to bring in more vendors. So obviously the table fee structure will have to change somewhat. We actually haven't raised our table fees in more than 10 years. So that's due for a change at some point. But also during the off weeks, like this is one of the things, like we've been talking to a Cohen and other levels of government, and they want to see that the building, when you're building a building, that it's going to be used for something else throughout the year. So we're going to be able to do events. So something like, say, the Multicultural Association, who has Fusion Festival, when they have food, they have a lot of electrical requirements, safety requirements. They will be able to use the facility. We already use it for art at night. And during those events, we have a cafe that runs as well, so we keep that open. That actually last year brought in, 2022 brought in $8,500. This year brought in $15,000. So we'll be able to expand that. People will be able to use it for conferences. They'll be able to use it for meetings. They'll be able to use it for weddings or other events. We will be able to rent those out. So that also brings in revenue that we're not already doing, because we don't have the storage capacity to clear our stuff out. So in this facility, that will allow us to do that. Additionally, we'll have the additional revenue of the kitchens. So right now, we rent out Thursday and Friday to two different vendors. One uses it in the morning, one uses it in the afternoon. We'll have a kitchen now that will be able to facilitate two vendors in the morning, two vendors in the afternoon. Plus, we'll still have a kitchen on the other side. So that brings in extra commercial kitchen revenue. And by having that commercial kitchen revenue, or commercial kitchen, that gives a catering facility for anybody wanting to host an event, because we have an approved facility that people can use when they're putting on a private event. For instance, we were approached by someone who wanted to run a conference. They wanted to use local vendors but couldn't meet the electrical and water requirements. This facility will be able to do that and host some of those flexible functions as well. And we also do partner already with Coastal Nova Scotia, so we're looking forward to having more community events as well.
Okay. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your presentation. You touched on a little bit of the deputy's warden's question. In terms of the money you're looking for, these are for capital costs, for building the building. And in terms of your operational cost, once the building is built, are you anticipating a bigger staff? How many, have you looked at that, what the operational costs are going to be and your staffing?
Yes.
Can you speak to that?
Yes, for sure. So mine will probably remain the same. So I expect that I will turn into more of an executive director. We have already somebody who works on Saturdays looking after the store. That role will increase to probably a larger, probably part-time initially to begin, but more hours. Right now she only gets 10 hours a week, but that will be something that will increase. She will look after the ordering of the store, making sure that's all maintained, and the operations. Right now she looks after our volunteers, making sure the volunteers. And then we will have hopefully someone like Michelle who stays on as an events and fundraising and grant person who will look after programming and perhaps putting on programming for the community during the week, and that person would be in charge of looking after that. All of that will bring in revenue that should cover off the salaries there.
So it's self-sustaining then?
Yes, 100%.
So I just have a comment and one
Absolutely.
more question then. When we talked about this at the last meeting we had regarding it, excuse me for a second while I bring this back up. My question was on the return on the investment. So if we make an investment on this, we're not just throwing money at it, we want some type of return on it. And you, in the report that you had sent through, you addressed that, and it seems to me to be a very worthwhile undertaking. And it says here that on average, in 2019, the number of people spent $41. And that time we expanded once and have seen a 62% increase in spending in the area of businesses and attraction. Using the $41 number from 2019 and multiplying this by the number of average visitors gives an indirect spending of $2.7 million in the surrounding businesses. So that's what I was trying to get at. What kind of impact is it going to be for the surrounding businesses? And you say that total economic impact is going to be $5.7 million. Is that per year?
Yes.
Okay. And I just have one last question, if I could. So that answered the question that I had from our previous meeting. The time frame on this. What kind of time frame are you looking at?
As soon as I have $7 million.
So
I mean, honestly.
that's not going to be tomorrow.
No, it won't be tomorrow. I mean, honestly, ideally, I'd love to have it next year. I don't know. We have to, there is but likely it'll probably be a 25, 26 at some point project. We're hoping for there to be a federal infrastructure grant that comes up, but it's indicated that it probably won't be till fall that we can access that. And of course, that depends on turnaround time. But in the meantime, we're just going to keep on trucking to get where we need to go. So, yeah.
Okay. Councillor Thompson.
Thanks for coming, Christy. I don't know if you mentioned, you gave a lot of information there. You're very good.
Sorry.
Appreciate the thoroughness. First of all, I support what you're doing here. You're building a project right now. I understand that.
Yes.
You're at the very beginning. It starts with an idea. The idea needs to get on paper, and you've gotten to that point, right? And you do have some support out there for this. But I guess the biggest thing for me, I frequented, and I've actually been a vendor at the market at points in times, and my son's been involved. What is the percentage of vendors that are women?
98%. Between 98 and 99% are women. More than 6 or 7% are newcomers.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, like there's just, I think in this day and age across our country, we are all facing a lot of issues right now, and it's our responsibility to do what we can to help. When this project is complete, we are done being on a growth phase. This project, the way that you've seen it, is to future-proof us, so I don't have to come back and do this again, because this is enough for me. So when this is done, I'm good. But it's to provide a space for our community, for everybody to be included. And so we can't solve homelessness, we can't solve food insecurity all by ourselves, but we can sure as heck do our part. And when we move from this, we will not be in a growth phase, we'll be in a maturity phase. So then we can turn all of our focus and all the fundraising we've been doing, we have some great ideas that have worked really well. We can turn all that fundraising into programming and really fitting our communities and taking advantage of these other awesome organizations in our county. And we can do a lot together, and
Yeah.
that's the point.
Yeah, and just one more comment, I guess, is that the market is a springboard for some businesses to take it to that next level, and you have some shining examples out there, right?
Lots, actually. So Big Cove Foods is now selling online. I call them graduates. They've graduated. Bramble Hill Farm started with us and is now wholesales, and she's moved on. Where most businesses are sad when people move on, we're actually quite happy. And we also welcome some of them back in. Some of them do a hybrid model between the market and their bricks and mortar stores or their other channels, because it really allows them to give them the assuredness of the market and the financial security of the market while they try these other avenues.
Yeah.
So that's what our purpose is to help people grow, and we love it. So,
Yeah, that's your return on investment.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Warden Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I'm like Councillor Thompson, I guess. I've been a vendor. My son's been a vendor for a lot of years. I have a lot of use for farmers markets, a lot of use for farmers. And I support everything that was in here in terms of what the farmers market does. But I guess my first question would be, I only see one municipality hours contributing dollars at this point. Have any others other than a promise of more?
Well, like I said, the town of Glasgow will do 10%, so that's more than
That's a-
$700,000 they're willing to commit. And that is a commitment. They're also providing in-kind support right now. So They are helping us every step of the way. We did not approach any other municipalities, so when we approached you, it was pre-COVID, then COVID happened, and we were kind of stopped dead in our tracks. So at this point right now, we know that before we go to any municipality that we need to do our part. So we want to make sure we have that before we come asking for more money anywhere else, and that's why right now we're not asking for money, we're asking for a letter of support. So that we do also have a campaign team that we are looking for, and that's why we are asking for the letter of support, because the package you received isn't quite complete until we get those letters of support, and we will be asking for investment from community and other private investors to help reach our $700,000 goal. And so we just want everyone to know that our county is on side for this project, and it benefits the residents of the whole county, and so that we can show that support when we go. So that's why we're asking for a letter of support now.
But our county is, or our municipality is the only one that has put money up front. Yeah. So my second question through you, Madam Chair, is the current all-round, year-round building. What year was that built? About 5 years ago?
Year-round building, 2015, so it's almost 10 years old.
And so what was the cost of that building when it went up?
I believe it's roughly about $400,000.
So in terms of year-round space, I know the dome isn't usable, when it gets too darn cold. But would another building that size or two more
No,
buildings that size?
That building is inadequate with low breakers. The electrical isn't great. The market has actually invested money to have that upgraded. It is not, having two more of those isn't going to allow us what we need to do. It's not going to allow us to have a farm store to further support our farmers. It's not going to allow an event space that we can rent out so that we can become and stay financially sustainable. It's not going to be the community gathering space that is in that drawing that will allow the arts and entertainment and culture to grow. So the answer is no.
I realize it won't be all of those things, but I mean, in terms
And
of,
that building also, 10 years ago, is not going to cost $400,000 anymore.
no, maybe you could do it for $1 million and two of them for $2 million. But I guess my warning on this is I saw what happened in Halifax with the Seaport Farmers Market when they grew out of their space at the brewery, the old Keith's Brewery, and so they wanted to expand. They wanted a big space with all, they were going to stay open all week and everything was going to be great, and it didn't turn out that way. So now they had to close that down, or somebody else went into that space, and they've had to settle for something not at that level for sure. So I'm concerned that we, in trying to be all things to a whole lot of people, that our key goal from day one was to be a market for farmers for their product and a socialization place to bring people together. My concern is that we may be trying to go too far too fast, that we need to grow in smaller amounts and not get in the position that Seaport did in Halifax. But if other levels of government come up with the money, more power to you. But I don't want to, what has happened to some projects in the past is that they've come back to the Deed Transfer Tax Trust when there wasn't enough money. And then, that wasn't meant for that purpose. It was meant for the hospital and meant for the wellness center. So that's what happens when feds say, I'll kick so much in, the province says, I'll kick so much in, but we're still short by $1.5 million. Then where do you go? And that's what's happened in the past. So.
Well, and I can't speak to, I wasn't here when the Seaport mark, I can't comment on that.
No.
It's not my place to comment on that situation. What I can say is our model is not that. We are not going to be open 7 days a week. We are not going to be a market 7 days a week. Our farm store will be open to make it accessible, so it'll be a few hours per week. It'll be easily maintained by one staff person. But it has been made very clear to us that there's not really any interest from any other levels of government for funding a building that's going to be open for 4.5 hours, or for 4 hours a week, and have no use for the other 6 days out of the week. So I think we can do more, and we can run those programs and we can do those things if we have the adequate space to do that. We've proven that the farm store works. We've doubled our income over the last 2 years, and with a secure and temperature stable building, we'll be able to increase that. We know that the demand is there vendors. I've turned away 5 of them so far, and I do have a waiting list, and I've had other community organizations trying to assist newcomers, and I've had to say, I'm sorry, I can't take any more. We are already full for Christmas. We were full in January. I now have a waiting list for Christmas. I'm actually full beginning of May. So, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. All I can do is future-proof the best. I don't know about too far, too fast. It's been 16 years. The other building's been up for 10. The dome's about ready to die. And if we don't have a contingency plan, then we're back 10 years. So I'd really like to not see that happen, because we have a lot of great farmers and a lot of great vendors in our area, and the customers have a great place to go, and I don't want to see it disappear. And that's where we're at.
Okay, all right, thank you. Counselor Boyles? Oh,
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, thank you for
Oh.
coming.
Apologize.
No, I guess there are a few questions here. Just one right off is that you're saying you'd like to open it up for other things, like, maybe dances or parties or, weddings or stuff like that. Well, wouldn't that be taken away from our community halls and that they're struggling as it is? That, it's,
No, we're not opening up to be a restaurant. We don't want to be those things. But we will have a unique space in that we don't want to be, we actually have a great working relationship with, say, Glasgow Square. We're not a theater. We're not a DeCoste Center. I don't want to be a DeCoste Center. We're none of those things. But what we do have, what we will have with that space is a bunch of electrical equipment and sinks. So a lot of our nonprofit organizations that are looking for a place to go, we have Creative Pictou County, we have Art at Night, we have all of these things. So those places, we can help them, but we can also serve a space for, we actually have very low venue space in the county. So if you're looking for something special or a meeting or something else, we can help with that. We do not want to take away from anyone else. Again, like, everybody should be working together and complement. If somebody said, could you be an auxiliary event for the Jubilee? Yes, we can, because we have an outdoor amphitheater, and we can have some local entertainment on to showcase some entertainment and our local musicians there. Music has been a very large part of the market from the very beginning, and we support our musicians and our arts and culture, and I feel like we can do more. Do I have all the answers? No, because we haven't been able to explore all the programming options. There's no point on approaching all these wonderful places and say, hey, how can we help you, when I really don't have the ability to do that right now. But we know they're out there.
Yeah, you also, have here I've seen your letters of support. Westfall wasn't there. Is it just they never come in yet, or they're not going to
It's
support?
there, it was on there.
Oh, I didn't see Westfall. I'm sorry, I didn't see
We
it.
have all the other towns.
So and are they ready to give money too? Are they, or you don't know yet?
We haven't approached for money, we're asking for a letter of support.
And I'm just wondering if it's a Pictou County venue, more or less, you know what I mean? Why wouldn't it be called the Pictou County Farmers Market, not in Glasgow?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. So it was supposed to be the Pictou County Farmers Market, actually a number of years ago, and again, that was prior to my time. I've been market manager for about 9 years, so this was before, and Bob probably knows the answer to this one, since he was there at the beginning, but I believe that there was a challenge on the name, so we couldn't use Pictou County Farmers Market, because there was another market in the area that was using that name, and we weren't permitted to use that name, so that's why it became the Glasgow Farmers Market, but we always have been and will always remain a regional farmers market for all of Pictou County.
Could have learned something tonight, I didn't know that. Thank
I
you very
know.
much.
I know, I was like, I'm glad you asked that, because I actually haven't answered to that.
okay, perfect. We still have a few more counselors, if that's okay. Counselor Parker?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Christy, for a very informative, a very quick presentation. You covered a lot of ground. I've never been a vendor, but I do sometimes frequent the market, and it's a very, very, very pleasant place to visit, and I think it does add to our community. Having said those positive things, I've had some pretty tough questions by residents in the last week. I'm not sure what triggered it, or whether it was well, I know there's a story in the Saltwire, the news as they call it. One of the questions I have, or they had, the lifespan of the dome, was that professionally evaluated?
Yes, that's what comes with the manufacturer, as far as I understand.
I know of many domes that, yes, the tarp has to be replaced, about every 10 years, but the actual structure of the dome is good for many more decades. Related to that question, would it be possible to simply add more space to that dome and therefore buy a bigger tarp and upgrade your electrical? People are asking questions. They're concerned about the price. They're concerned about tearing down a 10 or 14-year-old structure.
Right, so the dome is full of holes for one, and actually,
What do you mean by that?
as I mentioned, we sustained damage during Fiona.
So the tarp is full of holes.
So the tarp is full of holes, and even if you were to take it down, it still doesn't make it sustainable in shoulder season, so I still can't meet the demanded vendors. The water still has to be shut off. It shuts off usually about November and doesn't get turned on until May. So that means we have to take water back and forth between the domes. We don't have as many vendors during this time of year because they don't want to stand in the dome because it's cold. We do have some that will. So simply adding on isn't going to solve our issue. It still prohibits some food vendors from coming in. It creates a challenge because when it's super cold in there, and the market did invest actually from our own fundraise funds, $15,000 into propane heater, which we also pay for the propane ourselves. And it does take the edge off, but when it's -20 outside, it's still not tropical in there. So it's still less than ideal conditions. It's still not a secure facility. We've been broken into and vandalized a number of times. So that's not going to solve that issue. A year-round structure will, and it'll allow us to grow. Because then I'm still going to come back to you, and or somebody will, because I'll be gone by then, and ask for help because we need a year-round structure that's actually temperature stable and secure. So we would rather not throw money into expanding a space that is still going to be inadequate and still doesn't serve the needs of our community properly.
Okay. The other question or the other concern that I've had brought up to me is that $7 million is an awful lot of money for, quote, a business that only operates 4.5 hours a week. How do you address that, the cost?
Well, as I mentioned, the $7.1 million includes a 30% contingency, so the cost is actually $4.9 million. The building of that is $2.8 million, and the remainder is the outside landscape structure. Of course, that can be phased, but we would rather try and get everything done because, you know, if we wind up with a building, it could take another 15 years to get the outside part done. And also, as I mentioned, I think in detail, not only in the business plan, but during my presentation, the idea is to have programming and other event revenue streams through events and through other programs that we are not able to currently pursue. We were starting prior to COVID, we had a rental sort of thing going for the other building, and it had to be put on the back burner because of COVID. But this is something that will allow the revenue stream, and also, again, as I mentioned, the farm store will bring in substantial revenue while supporting our farmers and community groups as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wadden.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Christy Michelle, for coming in. I certainly enjoyed your presentation, and particularly interested in it's an opportunity for 98% female entrepreneurship in this county, which I think is huge for all women in the county in general. I really like what you're planning. I said before at the last meeting that this is something for the future for Pictou County. It's not you know, too far down the road, hopefully, but it is the future. And I compare it to our Pictou library project that we have going on now. That was totally unheard of before. A hub joining together the costs and library was first in Canada. So we see the inroads they're making down there in Pictou with that building and facility, and I'm really excited for what's to come with that. So I feel the same way about this project. I think it's something that long overdue in this county, and you've proven yourself over the years, as Whole Farmers Market have proven, the sustainability. You do things every year. You're a lot bigger now than you were, 14 years ago when you opened the doors. You know, you've come in strides, and I think this is just another stepping stone. And I certainly enjoyed your presentation. I think you both did a great job, so thank you for coming out tonight.
Okay, and finish it off, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you. I think markets work because they're seasonal to begin with, and that's what makes them unique. And when Councillor Boyle's asked about would it affect the other people who are trying to do the same thing as you. I'm not so sure if it's going to affect it at all, but what my question would be, there's Glasgow Square, and you mentioned the DeCoste. We have all these other, we have small markets as well, and we have a wellness center, and we have a lot of people competing to have events, like all the events you named, and you mentioned trails, and we have lots of trails. So right now, not only are we lacking the revenue to support everything I just named, we're lacking the volunteers, and there's only so many people within the area that can attend these things, and sometimes bigger's not better, because when you make it bigger, then it takes away the attraction of it being only certain times of year. So having said all that, from what I'm hearing from the residents that approached me is the large amount of taxpayers' dollars should benefit everybody, not just a few. And right now, some of our requests are very large to begin with, and a lot of people are struggling just to hold what they have. So I'm not saying that you wouldn't brother with them and try to have events and cross with them, like try to help and support them. But I'm concerned that you'll end up in the same situation as them.
So let me clarify something. We are not meant to be an event space. We are a community space, and we are open to everybody. We do not charge an admission to go to the farmer's market. Our event space is when we're approached and somebody wants to have a space. We are not putting on a theater. We're not putting on concerts. We're not doing those things. We're there to complement other things. We are not looking to take away from anybody. And I really wish that people would not pit one against the other. We can all be here and all support each other. The farmers market is open and accessible to everyone. And what we're trying to do is to make it more accessible by having a farm store that's open on more than just Saturdays. That is our primary function. However, that doesn't mean that we can't. We have free community events when we partner with Coastal Nova Scotia. That's open and accessible. There was no fee, there was free music. We want to do more of those free events and have it accessible. We provide a place for people to come watch on a Saturday, watch Race on the River, and do those things. We are not looking to be, and I'm sorry if I put that across, because I'm not looking for...
I'm stressing that you're not a competition.
Yes.
I know that.
Yeah.
I'm stressing that there's only so many people and so much money. And if you don't have the support that these people that I named, or like all the places that I named, or businesses, or whatever you want to call them, you'll end up just like them. You'll only have a quarter of what you have now, and you'll be as big as you want to be. But you won't have the people, because the people only have so much money. So that's my concern. It's not about if you're going to take away from them. That's not a concern. Right now, they're struggling to survive. Like, a lot of these places can't get the entertainment in because they can't get the people in to watch the event. So, like, there's a big struggle there. And our people are struggling as it is. So all I'm saying is people want their money spent on other things that benefit everyone, not just something as, and like I said, people, they think markets are seasonal. That's why they're unique. So making it available all year round might have a negative effect. That's a concern. And it's not my concern. I'm only here to be the voice of the people, and I'm just passing along what people have been saying to me.
It's not necessarily the events that we're trying to benefit. I'm sorry again, my voice is gone, but opening the space for programs and things like our nurturing community. So it's not when Christy's saying things like an event space or other than the market or more than the market, it's to provide programs within Pictou County, within the region, to provide things for like our nurturing community. It helps with food insecurity. So we want to have more programs with that, more things to invite the community in at low cost, so that they're able to come enjoy the space, enjoy what programs we can offer. And you do that through the town of Glasgow, or through partnerships with Coastal and Evergreen, and those are at no cost to the community. So we're not trying to ask people for more money. We have those things already going on there. They just become bigger and better, and still free, and still able to get the community.
There's seniors programming, there's mommy and me, there's all kinds of parts of our population that could use a place to gather. There's workshops, there's lunch and learn, there's all kinds of things.
It's not to have a concert or anything, or to
That's
try to
right.
get 200
We can have an
people
nutrition program, we can do all kinds of things.
Again, we have everything you just named. I think it's wonderful. But how many do we need?
Well,
That's,
but you're saying that there's not enough and people can't afford, we're giving free programming for people to go to. So why not? Like, why can't, I don't understand. I get what you're saying, but I.
in order to survive with your free stuff, you have to have enough of the paying stuff.
That's correct, and I'm aware. So that's why I mentioned we have the commercial kitchen space, we have our vendor space, we have all these other revenue streams as well as our farm store that brings in revenue.
I wish you well. All I'm saying is, that's what people are saying. So I just wanted to pass it
No,
on.
fair enough.
Everybody has their
Yeah,
thoughts.
for
So
sure.
it's in there. I didn't want to do this.
Well, thank you so much for coming this evening and for your wonderful presentation. And it was well thought out, and you seem to answer all of our questions, so we appreciate that.
Excellent, thank you.
Yes, well, thank you so much.
I look forward to the letter of support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, let's move along. Next, we have our reports not requiring a motion. The first we have is the communication report. Any questions or comments on the communication report? Yes, go ahead, Warden Parker.
You caught me off guard there. I just, I've lost the place here now, but in the, where it lists, the number of views or whatever, what Adam puts in, I noticed that the flyers were far and ahead. And so I appreciate Adam putting that on our social media or whatever, because there's an awful lot of people out there, upset. But we've talked here even some tonight already about, the cost of living, and people are watching very closely where they're spending their money. And I'm not a flyer looker, but there's a lot of people who are, and they miss those when they don't get them. And now we know Saltwire's in some trouble. Well, Saltwire's the people that pay the people to put the flyers out too. But I wonder, through you, Madam Chair, if I could, to Adam, has there been any response from Saltwire? I know some people are still telling me they're not getting them. It certainly waved the flag some that this was a problem, but I just wonder if Adam's had any correspondence or anything from Saltwire.
Yeah, I did hear from them that they were getting a number of calls, so I know that they're at least getting the information, so I assume that they're going to be trying to address that as best as possible, but they haven't heard any feedback from residents, but just from the company that they were getting a lot of calls.
Okay, because it's not just a problem in one area, which I thought it was when I knew the longtime lady that had been there no longer was delivering, but then I found out from somebody that it's also a problem in River John and in other areas. So seems to be something awry, and it is important for people to be able to make the best buying decisions possible. If they don't know where those sales are or whatever, then they can't do that. So hopefully it's helped some, and if not, maybe we'll have to try another angle to keep the pressure on. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on the communication report? Moving along, recreation. Questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Butler.
Yes, Madam Chair. This is not in the report, but it is a concern that I'd like to see addressed soon. Last summer, it was suggested that there would be, as a possibility, that our swim program in River John, Caribou, and Lismore may be in jeopardy of being continued. I strongly feel that it should be continued, and I'm wondering if there's any decisions made at this point.
Okay. Do you want to answer that, or?
No, we don't have a recommendation to bring back one way or the other. We have applied for the federal funding, as we do every year. Still do not have a response back on that. Typically, we get that in April type thing, so that's kind of the time frame. They did say they'd move it up this year. They closed the deadline, I believe, earlier, and said they would have responses out earlier, but we don't have the response yet, so.
So we're in a waiting game. Okay. All right, thank you. Councillor Elliott.
Would it help any if there was a motion made to continue the programs?
I think we're waiting on funding. We have applied for funding.
So it wouldn't help at all? Have you ever been refused the funding?
There's a number of factors that go into it.
Lifeguard's
It's not
one of
only
them, I know
funding,
that.
it's actual staffing resources, and in the last couple of years, finding
Lifeguards.
qualified lifeguards has been an issue as well. We've been able to identify them, but it was later in the process of hiring summer students. Unfortunately, right now, it is a bit of a wait-and-see game.
Yeah, summer students were late last year, weren't they? Was it last year? Yeah.
Summer students weren't late, but the swimming, I think, was July before they came on.
Yeah.
Because we did have difficulty identifying qualified people, so. So we don't, right now, we can't say we're gonna have that issue. Yeah,
So lifeguards of Pictou County.
so
Yeah,
anyways.
for a job posting, hopefully. Perfect. Okay. Okay, seeing no more questions, we'll move on from recreation. We'll go on to the warden's report for the month of February. Questions or comments? Go ahead, Warden Parker.
I just wanted to let people know we had the AGM this morning, and then our regular meeting after that of the Board of Governors for the Wellness Center. And so there's been a change at the top. So Graham McNeil has been the COO at the Wellness Center for the last 3 years and done a good job, moved the organization ahead in quite a few ways. So Chad McDavid is the new COO starting today. And so he has worked closely under Graham for the last 3 years and has been with the Wellness Center for a lot more years than that. I don't know if it's 7, 8, 9, 10 or what, but been around there for quite a while. And so he's starting today as the COO. And the other point I wanted to bring up on that is that the deficit of the Wellness Center it's been growing in the 8 years I've been there. It's continued to grow. And it's mostly associated with the cost of energy. And for some reason, despite an awful lot of money being poured into fixing things and researching things and everything else, that cost continues to grow fast. So they're working with a company called Johnson's that they was supposed to well, they did put in a lot of new controls and whatnot, but there were supposed to be some guarantees, and hopefully those come through. But because of that, those energy costs continue to put the Wellness Center in a deficit position, which then means it has to come back to the municipalities for more money. It appears that hopefully, and there's only a tentative budget right now, but hopefully we'll be able to hold it at what it was last year, which was, well over, I think, 1.1 million or something for the municipalities to handle, outside of all the other incomes that are coming in. So it remains a very, very difficult job, and hopefully under Chad McDavid's leadership, and they're working closely with Johnson's now to see if they can come up with some more answers. But I just want to let everybody know there's still a challenge, a big challenge, to try and get those energy costs under control.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Warden. Councillor Wadden.
Just on that issue, Mr. Warden, if I could.
Yes,
Madam
go
Chair.
ahead.
Have you ever looked at anything like solar fields to help offset the cost of energy, or is that something out of the realm of the Wellness Center?
No, it was looked at quite seriously about 6, 7 years ago, and they did, I don't know if they put them on yet or not, that part of this Johnson's program was to put solar panels on the back of the building. I don't know why that part was chosen, but I think there's something to do with the roof, and I think they were worried about putting them on the roof to do with weight and whatnot. But that didn't seem to be the answer. A lot of it came down to, they said it was commissioned too quickly and wasn't commissioned properly, and I didn't even know what that word meant, but it meant that all the controls weren't working together. It was supposed to be one of the most energy efficient buildings in Canada when it was built, but because the heat from the ice making equipment was to be diverted to the pool to heat the water in the pool. Well, that all sounded real good, and but it never worked properly, and they said it was because they weren't properly aligned. They weren't properly commissioned, that they weren't clicking in and out at the right times and whatnot. But now solar was looked at. They even one time almost had a big, one of these big sea cans, one of these big truck or trailer bodies that was going to have a generating, heat generation, I forget what type of heat it was now. It was natural gas, I think, when natural gas seemed to be in style there for a while, that it was going to create all the energy for it. We pretty near went down that path, but then we got some bad reports from others, but solar was one of the many things considered. So we're burning a lot of energy, but it's not being properly distributed in the building.
Just that they made such strides with energy efficiency, might be worth looking at what options are out there now. I'm thinking more of a solar field as opposed to solar panels on the roof, this sort of thing. But again, I mean,
they certainly
there has
have
to be a
had
way
a
to
lot
get those costs down.
of, they've had more experts, I guess I'd say, than Heinz has Pickles look at it, but they haven't come, I think they feel they're getting close. But there's, this Johnson's they're with now is, there's some problems there that they're trying to iron out, and you know, they put in all new lighting, and they made it quite a difference in the pool. Something to do with the evaporation coming off the pool that the Y has. They've by changing the temperature of the above air and the water temperature, they don't have near as much evaporation off the pool. If you don't have evaporation, or if you have evaporation, that water's all disappearing. You got to bring in a whole lot more cold water. Then that cold water has to be heated to up to temperature. So they did do a number of things that no doubt have saved energy, but the bill keeps going up.
Okay. And just on your meeting with Minister Lower regarding major snowstorm in February, was that just a debrief on it, or was there?
If I follow when that was, that wasn't at the first. That was, yeah, he called about a week later, wanting to know if there was anything more he could do to help us.
Okay. All right.
And at that time, I think there was another big storm coming, but not predicted being anywhere near the big one. But he just wanted to know if there's anything. I think he was calling around to all the municipalities,
Yeah, okay.
particularly in certain areas, and by that time, they'd already sent up the snowmobiles and the people to run them and everything, and so we were still using them some to help get supplies to people. But I think that's what that call was about, just you know, checking up, see if there's anything we need.
I know were we supposed to have a meeting concerning or debriefing on the storm? Was that the plan at one point?
We're going to have this emergency meeting, how to deal with emergencies, whether it be a storm or Fiona or whatever. And I think we're waiting, Brian, for you and Evan, was it, to have a meeting with some provincial people.
So that's still on tap?
Yeah,
then?
it's
Okay.
still on tap. I asked about when we could have it, and I don't know when's that meeting, or did it take place yet? Was the provincial? 21st, that must be this week, yeah. So we're just kind of waiting to see what they hear from that, and so they can bring that to, so it'll be sometime in the next month or so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just on Johnson Controls, I remember it was talked about if we have a $3 million investment, that guaranteed $300,000 a year in savings. Is that still, are we looking at that savings? Because they said it was guaranteed, so.
I think we're down to the fine print
Down to the fine print.
in the contract, and that's what Chad and Graham are meeting with a bunch of the top fellows from them. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong. I'm just saying there's a difference in the understanding of what has to happen in order for that to kick in. So.
Because I thought it was going to be a $300,000 savings over a 10-year period.
Yeah,
which was-
if we didn't achieve the savings that they had told us we would.
Exactly.
And
They guaranteed this.
Yeah, I don't want to say too much because it's it's in legal limbo for now. But I'm not saying anything against Johnson's. I'm just saying that we have to meet with them and make sure everybody's meeting their obligations.
Okay, no, I understand, energy costs are going up all the time, so.
It's the peak demand, it's the demand meters that are killing them in there.
Yeah.
If one of that big electric boilers goes on for half an hour, then your demand is at that for the whole rest of
We were in the
the
same thing.
2 months.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Councillor Boyles.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, when you were saying about the solar panels and stuff like that, did you ever look at the community college there? I remember isn't it awful, the gentleman that's on the 144 wing with me down there, he was, when he was over the community college, they put a solar wall up.
Well, that's what they were talking about, as
Yeah.
I mentioned to Debbie's
Yeah,
question.
I guess it worked great up there, that's
Right.
all what he says.
And I'm not sure if that's gone on yet or not. There was talk about a wall on the back. Was that Dave Freckleton?
Yes.
Yeah, that may still be to happen. I'm not so sure that's happened yet, but that was the idea, to put a solar wall on the back. But that wasn't gonna be a lot of their savings. It was maybe 5% or something, compared to maybe the lighting was 10% and the pool stuff was 20%. There was a whole lot of percentages. But they certainly have looked at a lot of stuff and tried quite a bit of stuff, but they're still not there. And a lot of it comes back to the controls kicking in at the right time. It's almost like having your furnace kick in and somebody forgot to close the window, you know, and so it's not doing a whole lot of good. Well, that's sort of the type of thing that was happening there.
Okay. Any other further comments or questions on the warden's report? All right, seeing none, we'll move along. We'll go to taxes receivable report. I will draw your attention to a bit of a typo there on the second last row of the first column. It should say tax receivable balance end of month February 2023, and then the bottom one is the 2024. Okay? Follow me? Okay. Comments, questions on the taxes receivable report? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Parker.
Clearly, there's continues to be a significant issue here, and I just want to encourage our staff to be working on it. My question is, we've been promised for several months that letters would be going out to some of the more delinquent accounts. Have those letters gone out? And so, then what's the next step?
So the letter basically provided 14 days for them to make contact with us. And if we really don't have any response, then the next step would be to refer those for title search.
When did that 14 days begin? Or when is it over?
It's probably over now, so so we've had some pickup from people looking to enter into agreements. So we'll go back through and look at the ones that we've had no contact with and book the time with the title searcher.
Thank you.
Okay. Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes.
on that, there was 100 letters, around 100 letters went out, and they're starting to work on the second 100, I think, now.
That's great. Great to hear. Movement on that. Okay, we'll move along to the deed transfer tax report. It's for the month of February. Questions or comments on the deed transfer report? Not as exciting as it used to be. But
Yeah, just as a general rule, I mean, it has slowed down. The 812,000 there, the actual trust only projects somewhere in the neighborhood of about 870,000 from everybody. So we still are over, but it has gone from, I would say, our projection for the end of March would probably be in the 1.4 million range from all the units, which is down probably about $1 million compared to last year. So we are coming back to.
But, Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead. Warren Parker.
Would that still not be significantly higher than what when we look back on the early years?
Oh, yeah. Typically, we were in the 850 range.
It's
So,
total.
yeah, so we still are about 50%
Yeah.
over where we were pre-COVID type thing. So it's coming down. I would suggest it will never return probably to the pre-COVID numbers because
Price
the
of the
sales
houses way up.
values over the last 3 years are significantly higher,
Yeah.
right? So the 1.3 million is probably the new norm that we will see. I would, so I think that's probably more realistic where it'll be.
Okay. All right, we're moving on to number 9, and accounts paid for the month of February 2024. We have a motion on the floor? Moved by Councillor Parker, seconded by Councillor Elliott. Open the floor up to questions or comments. Accounts paid. Yes, Councillor Thompson.
Page 1, I don't know what check number it is here. It's for $380,353.24 to Rogers. What was that for?
So that's our diverse routing for internet.
What does that mean?
So it's basically the internet traffic out of Pictou County. So we now travel on Rogers. So there's actually 2 routes that it goes. So it gives us, if one route, there's a fiber cut, it automatically would reroute the other way.
Is that a one-time cost?
That's a one-time capital cost, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Parker, was that a hand or a adjustment? Okay. That's what I was wondering. Okay, any other questions or comments on the accounts paid for the month of February? Seeing no further comments or questions, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. All right, next we'll move on to number 10A. This is the Community Generator Fund Extension Request. So that request is from East River St. Mary's Fire Department. And they had received $3410 for the installation of a generator. Moved by Councillor Thompson, received the extension. We have a seconder, seconded by Councillor Turner. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Right.
Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Next, we have a municipal service grant extension request, and this kind of ties hand in hand. East River St. Mary's Fire Department in the amount of $3,500 for the installation of that generator. Okay, moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Parker. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Next, we have council grant extensions. The first is from Creative Pictou County in the amount of $2,500 for their START program. And the second, we have Pictou County Athletics in the amount of $5,000 for the purchase of a discus cage. Tongue twister a bit. We have a motion. Moved by Councillor Palmer, seconded by Councillor Elliott. Approve those extensions. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Next, we have our high school graduation bursary and annual grants. The first is North Nova Education Center in the amount of $2,000. Then we have the Northumberland High School in the amount of $2,000. We have Pictou Academy in the amount of $200 and Tatamagouche Regional High School in the amount of $200.
So move.
Yes, and this will be out of this year's budget, 2024. Yes, moved by Deputy Warden Murray. Who did I hear over here? Councillor Thompson? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. This does not include our bursaries or anything. This is for actual, like, helping proceeds of the graduation, correct? This includes the bursaries. Yeah, okay. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Next, we have two recreation sponsorship grants. The first is Pictou Regional East Science Fair in the amount of $1,000 for the sponsorship of local science fair at Pictou County Wellness Center on March 27th. So it's coming up next week. And the second, we have the Pictou County Crushers Under 15 AA, amount of $250, and they're hosting provincials March 28th to the 31st, coming up next weekend. It's moved by Councillor Palmer, seconded by Councillor Wadden. Any other questions or comments? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Parker.
First of all, I'll declare a conflict of interest because it's clearly my name at the bottom of the letter. I just wanted to be clear. This is a global request. It's not to send this person or that person to the National, which this year is being held in Ottawa, although some of the monies go there, okay? It's also to help put on the actual science fair. They feed the judges. They bring in a couple judges from away and so on. Just general costs. There's prize money. I think there's 15 or 16 prizes given out on the 27th, which is independent from those who ultimately get selected. And then there may be 2, there may be 3, there may be 4. Some years there may be 6, but we can only send 4.
Okay.
And a good portion of that money is actually paid to the National Science Fair Committee to register that you will be sending people. Okay. I can answer or try to answer any questions people may have, but I will not be voting.
Okay, so you're declaring a conflict.
I'm declaring a conflict.
Okay, thank you. Warden Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have any questions. I just have a comment that the students, I was going to call them children, but I'll call them students that take part in these science fairs, along with their teachers and their parents and the rest of their families, put an awful lot into these projects. And these are the leaders of the future. They learn by doing these things and trying these things, and it's I think it's just a very, very small investment we're making in them, because those same students, give it 20 years and they'll be working for some of the biggest companies in the world doing great things. And so we have them, they're ours, they're right here now. We can help that so much because we need a lot of science and a lot of smart people to move this world ahead. So I think it's a tremendous investment in our youth. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead. Yes, I don't know what the rules.
I just want to provide further information. All 6 of the municipalities were solicited. It's not addressed to me, it's addressed to Eliza Abbas, the chair, so I cannot and I would not report which ones have contributed and which ones have not. We also sent out solicitation letters to some major businesses in the county. Thank you.
Okay. All right, everybody, I'll call for the vote on this. Everybody, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Okay, next we'll move on to the Community Connectivity Grant. This is for Little Harbour Community Center in the amount of $1,500 for District 2 year and end-of-year party. Yes, go. Want to make a motion for that first?
Yes, I'll make a motion and just explain it's the end of the school year program. We left the school year out, so.
Oh.
It'll be around the June timeframe.
Yes, okay, perfect. We have a seconder on that motion? Okay, seconded by Councillor Turner. Any questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Butler.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd just like to maybe ask for clarification. If we as councillors don't spend our allotment by the end of March, do we lose it?
Yes.
Yes.
That fund did not roll over.
It's too bad.
By requesting it now, does that mean they'll be okay to use it though for planning the party now and purchasing the things for the party? So that's why I put in for it now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's going to be another grant
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Okay. Yes, go ahead, Councillor Boyles.
Just where it's a community grant, and it's just a question and no concern of mine, I guess, but like when I got 1,500, same as we all did, I split mine between, well, the two big ones was Sea and Hillside because they both had things. So I was just wondering why a little Harbour gets it all and Pictou Landing don't get none. That's what I was wondering.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Wadden.
I think if you check the paper, it's a District 2 request, and it's all for District 2. They will be invited, Pictou Landing and Pictou Landing First Nation Reserve will both be invited, and they'll get the information on it. Thank you.
Yeah, it says District 2, end of year party. Yeah. It says District 2, end of year parties for the whole district. Yeah. Well, it's a District 2 party. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Okay, so next we're going to move on to G. It is the municipal election voting recommendation. And so with the council, we need to decide whether to accept the staff recommendation of electronic voting for the October 2024 municipal elections. It's hard to believe, 6 months' time. Okay, it's been moved by Councillor Wadden that we accept staffing recommendation. We have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Elliott. I'll open the floor now up to questions and comments. Councillor Boyles.
Yeah, I'll be against it all the way. I mean, it's something that when COVID was on, we talked about it. We said, okay, because of COVID, we would go into, a year. I was against it then, but it's me and the warden were at a meeting in Halifax, and we talked to a specialist on electronic voting. He said it's so easy to be tampered with and to be rigged that it's scary. And he was supposed to be he's a councillor in Halifax, and he gave me the card for us we give it here to have him come and speak on it. He said he would, so I don't know why it took so long. We didn't get him, but to me, it's so easy. I mean, common sense tells you how easy it could be to turn around and people go around and could be voting for people's list. And I was blamed for it, didn't do it, but I turned around and just because my cell number that somebody used was there more than once, it looked like I was turning and making them soliciting votes and voting for people, which that's not what happened. But it can happen. It's very easy for somebody to go in and to go to some old person and turn around and get them, or go to anybody at all, and just turn around and say, I want to, you want to vote here, I'll show you how to vote, and vote for them. I mean, I think electronic voting is the worst thing in the world, but I'm totally against it, and I'll be voting against it.
Okay. Go ahead, Warden Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't totally disagree with Councillor Boyle's concerns that there's probably a reason why the federal and provincial governments haven't gone. Certainly they've maybe gone a little bit where they have in the voting booth or something where you can do it electronically, but or do it by hand. So until they feel that that all the kinks are worked out of it, they're still with the paper ballot. My big concern is that those who absolutely can't, or either whether they don't know how or just don't want to for various reasons, still want to go and vote with a paper ballot. I think what I read in here as I was reviewing this, that there'll be 2 rather than 1 stations for paper ballots. Is that right or not?
Kiosks.
Kiosks.
For electronic.
Oh, it's still electronic, but it's kiosks where somebody could go in and help you.
Correct.
If you needed it. So last time, I think we only had, was it 9 people that day? The figure was very low anyway. So why are we going, I think it's good to have 2 for traveling distance and whatnot, if that's what it's for. Is there going to be a kiosk on one side of the county, kiosk on the other, or?
I think that's the initial thought process, was to have it at one in the east, maybe one in the west, for that very reason, travel, to cut down on travel.
Yeah, because if you live in River John, to travel to the wellness center to vote, you know, you have to scratch your head a little bit, I guess, but I think this is the way it's going, whether we like it or not. I think that's where it's heading in the future. Everything else is going electronic, but the provincial and federal are holding back for now. But yeah, I guess the reason we're not going to giving them the option of a paper vote, which I think we did the first time around, is because of cost. Is that right?
No, the concern that the returning officer raised was really around the functioning of the election and the ability to actually find people to work in the election. The returning officer recently did a by-election in the town of Westfall last fall and had a challenge finding the poll workers. And that was only, I think, 8 people. So it's a tough thing for us. We have 12 districts. We don't know how many districts we'll have elections in at this point. So that's kind of the difference. There is a cost difference if paper ballots are used. You're a combination, we're probably adding 50%, I think is the number. We looked at the difference between elections where we had paper and just electronic. There is a savings by doing electronic only. But the biggest concern that the returning officer has raised is the availability of people to work the polls.
So one more question, if I might, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Those ones, the kiosks, I guess we call them, one on one side and the other on the other side of our county, would it be possible to have a paper option there, or is that too much work for the gain? You know, those people who really want to vote by paper, if they're going to a kiosk, could they vote paper rather than electronic? Or, but I know it will probably cause problems because you're going to have that few that have to be counted, but that wouldn't take too long, I guess. But I'm just thinking of the people that traditionally really want to vote on a piece of paper. Did we have paper last time?
Yes.
I heard them say it was electronic. It was a kiosk, but it was only electronic.
Only electronic.
No, that was further back, I think. Yeah. I don't know if it's too costly, obviously you can't do it, but.
If you have a paper option, it is per district. So
Okay.
it would be every district that would have an election would have to have polls.
Have a separate one. Yeah, it might be undoable. I just was trying to see if there's some way we could help those people who really want to vote by paper, but maybe there's not. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Parker?
Some of us around here are old enough to remember some stories about nylons and bottles of rum. My point is that elections have always, there's been partisan cheating, if that's what you want to call it, since a very, very long time. No system is perfect. I haven't heard of rampant abuse of the electronic one in this county anyway. We'll point out that in 2016, the last time there was election District 7, we had the option. You could vote electronically, telephone or computer, or on the election day you could travel to the poll and vote on a paper ballot. That was particularly helpful in my district because the 2 polling places set up are Millbrook and Union Center, and they tend to be on the east side of my district. The west side of my district, which includes lots of good people as well, all up through Salt Springs, Mount Tom, Brooklyn, Watervale, West River Station, they had to travel a long distance. If you've ever traveled on the roads up through those areas, you know what I say when they had to travel a long distance over very rough roads to get to vote. Well, they just won't bother. I'm not going to pound my vehicle over 20 kilometers of potholes to get to vote. So I think this is a move forward. I believe we're smart enough over time to make it more and more secure. I'm not sure it'll ever be perfect, but I know some people that will only vote now electronically. Oh, I'm not going to leave them home. I'll do it right here. In fact, I had one fellow tell me in 2016 when I told him he could vote electronically, oh, I'll vote then. You know, because he didn't want to drive the 15 kilometers to vote. Anyway, there's pros and cons on both sides here. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of questions, or one, basically a statement, one is a question. Question first, is when the election is finished, is there like a post-mortem done on the security of the systems? Like, the concerns that Councillor Boyle brings up, is there any investigation if somebody comes forward and says, I think something's been tampered with? Is there any mechanism in place that we can do a post-mortem on the election electronically?
Yes, so if there were concerns raised, there is and throughout the process, there is an audit process that checks the integrity to make sure the system is working. But if there was a specific concern after the fact, then there is the ability to dive into the files, the electronic files, and investigate whether or not there would be any validity to that particular concern.
There is safeguards built into the system then?
There are safeguards built in.
Okay.
It's an honesty system to some degree.
And
No different than a paper ballot.
Just the comment is, I mean, the percentage that people that actually vote is going down and down and down and down through my lifetime. I mean, it was civic duty to vote when I was younger. A lot of people just don't care anymore. So to find ways to encourage people to vote and make it easy for them to vote, I think that should be a consideration as well. And I think that electronic voting does that. So if you compare what you're trying to achieve, you know, to get people to actually be involved in politics and do their civic duty, as compared to what the security risks are, I think that security, you know, we have mechanisms to look into it. I think that we should stay with the electronic systems. Thank you.
Councillor Wadden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just the year we had the partial paper ballots and the internet, the electronic voting, it was a lot of confusion because the electronic voting had to shut down at a certain time and then went to the paper, and it was very difficult to get information and who voted and this sort of thing. In any case, I think it's much easier just to go with the electronic voting. It already, like last 2020, over 50% voted for the 6 districts that had elections, which I think is a pretty good percentage amount considering what Larry just said now about the small turnout of voters. So I think it does encourage people to vote whenever it's convenient for them and wherever they want to vote from. So I'd be in favor of the total electronic voting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else that wants to speak before I go second here with Warden Parker? Okay, go ahead, Warden Parker.
I just wanted to say that there's no guarantee that electronic voting is going to give you a quicker result. We saw that last time. Everybody thought for sure it was just going to be a click, 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 and there's the numbers. But it was, I don't know, it was well over, what, an hour, 2 hours, an hour? You know, because the thing overloaded or whatever. The computer couldn't handle the amount of people going in to see what the results were. So we can't, you know, assume that electronic is suddenly going to give us all these instant results. I'm not against electronic, but I do like giving people an option, but if that's not feasible, it's not feasible. But let's not fool ourselves into thinking that electronic is suddenly just going to work perfectly. We know from working computers every day that doesn't happen.
Okay, thank you.
Just to that point, the last time the the website crashed, which was the results thing, but to the warden's point, there is an audit function, a shutdown function, so it isn't just pressing a button and the results are spit out. There is a process, technical process that they go through to shut the system down, validate the results and things of that nature. So it's not, the election's done at 7 o'clock and you will have the results at 7:10. There is a technical process and an audit process that they go through to verify everything, so.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. Councillor Boyles?
Yeah, like in your question there, Larry, it's, I was into 3 different places that I turned around and seen it happen, where somebody was sitting there and they said, am I allowed to vote? Well, how long you been living here? You know, oh, I'm here a year. Yeah, you're allowed to vote. Well, how do we do? You have to turn around and register. Pick up the phone, call down here, say, my name is such and such, I live at such and such, and I turn around, would like to be put on the voters thing. Yeah, okay, here's your number, go. They don't know that it's that person at all. And it says right in the act that you're not allowed to do that. But it was done, I seen it. And it's turned around and it's so flawed, that electronic voting, but as I say, do as you may.
Okay. Any other final comments or questions before the vote? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Nay. Nays, raise your hands. 3. Chester, Peter, and myself. Okay. Motion's carried. Okay, we're moving on to 11, deferred business. We had said up here earlier in the agenda when we had the presentation for the New Glasgow's Farmers Market that we'd be discussing this in deferred business, but our policy actually states that we can't discuss, we don't have the discussion the same night as the presentation. So because of that policy, we'll be moving that to our next council meeting. That's my understanding, correct, Brian?
Correct.
Correct, okay. Directly to council, yeah, where it originated in the first place, I guess.
Correct, it was deferred at council.
It was deferred at council, so it's going back to council, okay? So consideration of deferred business or any other deferred business? I don't think so. Okay, motions of reconsideration. Okay, seeing none, meeting is adjourned. 8:39.
I'd like to call the Property Service meeting to order. First, I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are on the Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Next on the agenda, is there any emergency resolution? Is there an emergency? What's that? Oh, sorry, approval of the agendas.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Counted by nay, motion carried. Next, is there any emergency resolutions? Emergency resolutions? One more time. Emergency resolutions. Seeing none? Is there any errors or omissions, corrections to the minutes of February 20, 2024? Is there any errors, omissions, or corrections to the minutes of February 20, 2024? One more time. Any errors or omissions, corrections to the minutes of February 24? February 20th, 2024. Seeing none, we'll consider those approved. Reports not requiring a motion. First is the Public Works and Development Officer's report. Is there any questions? Deputy Warden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one question. I got a call from one of the residents on Stanwood Drive, and when we did the survey about the paving, did we send a letter out and tell him what the results of the survey was? This gentleman didn't get it, so he thought that everybody should. I just got...
No, we did not send the survey results out to the residents. We
I would request that, please. There's some of them thinking it's still ongoing, I think, so if that's okay with the council.
Warden Parker, did you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple of them here. The East Pictou demolition work will continue into March and April. I'm just wondering about two things: how near done we are, if there's any environmental issues that have to be dealt with, and are we on budget? I guess that's three questions. Threw a bonus one in.
Only allowed two.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair, through you. Yes, we are on track, we're on budget. Environmental concerns have been, not concerns, environmental work has been addressed, including the removal of underground storage tanks, that type of thing. I inspected the site today, so the demolition work has been completed, and the remaining work outstanding just includes the shaping, the grading around the lot, and the hydro seeding. So we're looking good for completion to be on track and on budget.
Okay, so everything is, it was a 1.2 million, I think we were?
1.28, 1.25?
Okay, it came in under budget or at budget anyway?
On budget, yeah.
On budget. Okay, and the, Mr. Chair, the second one is on the Salem Water Extension Project. Do we have any word, residents are asking me, as to, as it starts to warm up, as to when they're gonna start up again?
Yeah, thank you again. Construction is expected to start back up again the first week of April.
First week of April, which
Yep.
is a couple of weeks. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Seeing none, just on that, down by East Pictou there yesterday, looks good, just some shaping like you said there. The only thing I have, Logan, is on your report, I don't see the Culver McClellan's Brook water project. Is that?
Yeah, thank you. It will be on the next item. We've awarded the work, and we're having our kickoff meeting tomorrow. So that'll be the official start to the project. Although work has actually already started, the consultant has been out doing some of the initial topographical surveying.
Yeah.
So we're looking for that, but that will be included in the next report.
Okay. No, I was talking to the surveyor yesterday. He was on the Marsh Road, and I had quite a few people comment on, there's some pleased that it's actually starting, so they're seeing people on the ground, so that's great. Thank you.
I found one more, Mr. Chair. To do with these flow meters, or where did I see them? Eric flow meters. So we were supposed to, at the shared services meetings, you know what the promise was, that we put half of them in this year and half of them in next year. It doesn't appear that half's going to go in, because we're still waiting for, is it prices we're waiting for, or we're not going to get them in by the end of March?
Yeah, thank you. We're still hoping to award that work this month. So
Award the work, okay.
Yeah, so I had communication, I've had regular communication with our bidders, looking to get that pricing finalized and then vetted through our procurement policy, and then we'll be looking to award that work. But that's the intention of that.
We're still getting a lot of pressure at each meeting. I thought you were going to do half this year. Where are they?
Yeah.
That's still a sore point with one or two other municipalities. Okay,
sure.
thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Okay. No further questions? We'll move on. Development Officers Report. Any questions? Not seeing any. Emergency Services Report. Councillor Boyles.
I seen that there's plywood on one of the houses, the first one there with keep out private property or something. Did we put that up or did they do it?
Yeah, we put that up.
Okay, and is the other one done too, do you know?
The other home had an order written to it to do the same.
Okay.
That order expired today. Work wasn't completed, so we'll be also boarding that one as well.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Butler.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple of questions for Evan, through you. Forest fire season will officially be underway as of March the 15th. We all know that Pictou County was an area of the province that was among the hardest hit by the Hurricane Fiona. And we now have hundreds of thousands of tons of trees rotting and drying in our roadsides and woods. As we head into this forest fire season, what additional preparations are being made?
Thank you for the question. I'm happy to address that. So in terms of what we've done for planning, we hosted a wildland firefighting course for county firefighters 3 weeks ago. We had 32 county firefighters attend that course, and they're now trained to the level of relief wildland firefighters, so they can be called on by DNR at any point. We're also working with DNR and other regional municipalities to create a task force built out of sort of different municipalities and different groups of people. We expect to have about 60 people in the county by the end of it that will be part of a task force that can be called upon should we have a forest fire event. So we won't be waiting for resources from from Halifax and other provinces. We'll have them in county trained and ready to go.
You've partially answered my second question, which was the involvement of fire departments. And we saw examples last year where fire departments were not totally trained or on side with fire prevention. So I'm pleased that you are addressing the issue from that point of view as well. Thank you.
Okay. Warden Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to follow up on what Councillor Butler's talking about. I think it's a huge danger for this county. We're not the only county, but we're one of the worst ones in terms of what's left in the woods. A lot of people harvested their woods as best they could, saved what they, or sold what they could, and it took a lot off of the forest floor. But there's an awful lot that's not commercial. It's not worth anybody's effort to go in there and try and take it out. So it is going to, last summer we were lucky, it was quite wet most of the summer, but now it's been laying down going into the second year. If we happen to get a hot, dry summer, we're in a bad place. And when we have our emergency meeting here, which I said earlier will be hopefully within a month, this is one of the issues I think we have to look really hard at. We've been fairly fortunate in this county for a lot of years. I remember particularly the Trafalgar fire and how much damage it did. But once these things get going and the wind's blowing, it could happen anywhere. And I'm particularly thinking of what happened in Halifax County last year in terms of residents not being able to get out of their roads when a fire cut that road off. And I'm thinking of all up and down along our shore here, from River John right down to Lismore and all points in between. I've delivered product to a lot of those places, and I wound in through a narrow little road and eventually came to 10 or 15 homes. And there might be 3 or 4 other little branches off of that. And for those people to get out, if there was a fire out here blocking those roads, there's no way out. And so I guess my question is, have we done any planning or considered the only way out if you're in that situation, which is via the water, to look at the possibility that we may have to evacuate people by water? And is that something that we can do some planning for and say, well, we got this many people willing to come with their boats that we can get a hold of in a hurry? Because I dread that situation ever happening to anybody to be locked in. We know what it was like to be locked in by snow. So to be locked in by water could be just as bad, or locked in by fire, and the only exit out would be water. So that's my question through you, Mr.
Sure, thank you for the question. So we are certainly looking at different options in terms of how that looks. I think it's something that we can expand further on in the planning meeting that we'll hold. But the sort of the high-level conversations that have happened with some different associations, including our ATV, local ATV clubs, that have some capacity to take side-by-sides and things in through trees and things like that normally fire trucks wouldn't get into. I haven't had a chance to do any planning in terms of boats at this point, but it certainly is on my radar to be looking at that.
Okay. Councillor Dorr.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. A lot of years ago, I worked at the fire in Trafalgar. That was 1976, so there was a lot of little roads. The government gave money for fire roads back in the day, okay? About a kilometer from the pavement in. I was wondering if the if the province or the DNR or whoever's in charge of that anymore, all those little roads are still there, but there's likely trees fell down over them and stuff. If they had a TD 25 or something and just went in and pushed a path through again, it might be a suggestion, okay? And you know yourself, anywhere there was a sluice, it's washed out now. And that happened just lately. This winter, a lot of sluices went on old roads. Now, I have several roads in on different of my properties, but, and there's some damage, and I was trying to get somebody to fix it up, and that's kind of the reason, because if they can't get to it till it's out of control or gone crazy, but these old roads are there, and it doesn't have to be a pretty job. If they just drive in with a big dozer with a big blade on her and push everything out of the way that they can get in, then the gear can come, the tree farmers or bulldozers, excavators. And I know they fight fire a lot different now than they did at that time. That time it was manpower and boy power, and it was just unreal, that fire. But anyway, that was just a suggestion, and I wanted to run it by you. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll move on. Next is the fire inspector's report. Questions? We'll move on to the building inspector's report. Seeing none. Next is the bylaw officer's report. Councillor Walls.
Yeah, I was just wondering, on the property in Hillside, there was quite some time ago, there was a complaint put in about the former Penny property up there that, and I was just wondering if there's anything, I know that Ann was working on it, but is anything being done to resolve that and get that place down or whatever?
Thank you for the question. I don't have intimate knowledge of that particular file. I'd have to go back and look, but I can certainly have a look at that tomorrow and provide you with that information. I'm just not familiar with that file or when that would have originated.
Yeah, it's been, it's got to be going on, but I was talking to Ann on it, she was doing some legal work on it, so I was just wondering where it's at, because I want to get something done with it before something does happen up there.
Sure, I'd be happy to report back to you.
Okay. Warden Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I see one there from my district, District 6, on the locker room loop. Dog trap set in the area, dog trap taken to SPCA. Owner reclaims the dog. I guess I'm wondering the process, and this is also applying to another one that's taking place now in District 6, is what's the follow-up to that? You trap the dog, you take it to the SPCA, the owner goes in, reclaims the dog. What is the follow-up to try and, it hasn't done much good for the person that called if they simply have to go back in and reclaim the dog.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for the question. So in that particular case, we did trap the dog, it was taken to the SPCA, the owner came and reclaimed it. We issued that individual an order in terms of what they would need to do. So part of that is to construct a fence in the property to house the dog and things like that. And it sort of escalates from there. So if they fail to do that, we follow up with that. And if they fail to do that, then it would escalate to fines or seizures, things like that. It's sort of an escalating scale as it goes.
Very similar to the other one in District 6 then we were talking about. So when you go to reclaim your dog at the SPCA, is there a charge for that? When you go into the SPCA and say, I want my dog back?
Yes, there is a charge. It's very small. I think it's about $25 to reclaim it. And then also with that, if the dog isn't tagged, you must pay for the tag, and the dog has to be tagged before you can reclaim it. So that's another fee attached to that as well. But it is a small fee at the SPCA.
Well, even a charge of any type rather than just go in and I'll pick my dog up and it's like nothing happened.
Yeah, no, there is a charge associated with it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Seeing none? We'll move on to business items that require action. First one is Chance Harbour Road flooding issues. Councillor Bowles.
Yes, for a few years now, the Chance Harbour Road has been having, well, it's pretty well ready to wash out when we have a high water or anything like that. The water gets lifted right up. Now, they have two pipes. They did put two big pipes across, but still it's not handling. And it's not, the water is getting high enough, it's starting to tear away some of the pavement and stuff like that too. So the residents have asked me to bring it forward. I did bring it forward to DOT and told them what was going on and everything. And but I was just wondering if we get a letter sent to to the engineer or whatever, and Mr. McDonald, I guess, if he's still there, and also our MLA, Tim Houston, requesting that something is done there before they end up getting that road washed straight out.
Okay, is that a motion?
Yes, I make a motion, yes, please.
Seconder? Yeah, move and second. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Count by nay. Motion carried.
And I will give you the exact locations, whoever's writing them, so you'll have it.
Okay, excessive use of pumper trucks in Hillside. Councillor Boyles.
Yeah, well, for some time now, as everybody knows, that I talked to Eben on this, and too, it's we're paying like thousands and thousands of dollars to run on pump the water out of that pumping station every time there's a storm or big rain or a thaw or whatever. I mean, I've asked to see the what we put out in the last 2 years on that, and it won't surprise me if it's up at the 70, 80, 100,000 range. I mean, that we're paying to have this water taken out of there. Why don't we turn around and go after DOT and get the proper bridge or whatever put in? It's not that big, and so that water flows through, and stop us have to pay out all this money. I mean, if it was my home and I turn around, I'd be getting something done, so they didn't have to pay that money out. But it's really draining the funds from this council when we have a storm or anything, because they're around the clock pumper trucks there, just one pulling in, the other leaving, just trying to keep up with it. And the one building there is I mean, that's another issue, but it's just something has to be done, and it don't seem right that we're not getting it done. Maybe Evan could relate more on it.
Logan. Evan's replacement.
Yeah, thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. Chair. We are working on improvements in that area. So before I was on vacation last week, I put out a call for work based on the recommendations that came from our WSP consultants report that was done last year, 2023. That will include improvements to existing municipal infrastructure such as manholes, with the goal of lessening the impact of those rain and melt events. As you mentioned, Councillor Boyles, there's nothing that we can do about the existing bridge structure, culvert structure that is at the boundary between the town of Trenton and the provincial roads. I have not sent any type of communication with regards to that. I understand that there has been communication between the town and the province with regards to that, but within my time here, I have not sent any correspondence with regards to any type of improvements to that, because for the simple matter that it's not our infrastructure. But for what we can control, we are trying to make improvements, which at least right now, again, looking to include as part of our capital work for this fiscal year that's soon to end, are these improvements that were identified in the WSP consultants report that we received last year. Does that answer your question?
Well, yes and no, because my thing is that it'd be cheaper for us, I think, in the long run, if we went to the town of Trenton and DOT and said, okay, get something, what would it cost to get that torn out of there, and get something in that's gonna work, because as you know yourself, it's not that big. And then bingo, we're not gonna be spending all this money every time there's you know, I mean, you know, as we talked ourselves, I mean, it's, I think over the years, the money that's spent out there, they could build Golden Gate Bridge over it. I mean, it's crazy, and I really do think that we've got to really try and look for a solution. If it's even putting in some money to turn around and help get it done, it's going to be cheaper for us in the long run, I think.
Okay, anybody else? Just on that, if you don't mind, is there water running from the brook into the sewer treatment plant?
Thank you for the question. No, we have, not directly at least, we have, during my predecessor's time at the county, the outlets pipe, like the high-level outlet, we had it capped. So normally with these sewer lift stations, what happens is that you have an outlet location. So if you get some big influx of rainwater, snow melt, whatever it might be, there's somewhere for it to discharge. And if that happens, we notify the Provincial Department of Environment that there's been a discharge in keeping with the Environment Act, and that's allowed. So when you see things in other municipalities and in our municipality, though it hasn't really happened since I've been here, about these discharges into the environment, they're by design with these lift stations. We capped ours, again, before my time, it was capped because what we were finding was that as the flapper valve on the outside was meant to be pushing out the water that was coming into our system, it was in fact opening it and then allowing water to come in from the neighboring brook. So we've capped that. So the only points of inflow and infiltration that we found, we did a comprehensive CCTV video inspection of our entire system in the whole Hillside area last year. We did find points of infiltration. We found a couple areas of likely illegal connection from roof leaders, downspouts, that kind of thing. And we found some inflow into these manholes, which is what we're looking to fix. And we found some from a couple of these adjacent properties, like you mentioned, Councillor Boyles, that we believe are coming towards our system as well. But there's no flow directly from Loudon's Brook that's coming into our system.
No, because I know the road very well, and there's not much clearance there. You can't put a much bigger culvert that's in there now because of the clearance of that you need for the road and that. So
yeah, and with anticipated increasing sea level rise, it's just going to be that much more of a problem. We're planning now for 1.6 or more meter rise in sea level, and that is that section of Loudon's Brook and the downstream East River essentially is tidal, so we have to account for that. We'll have to account for that in the long term as well. But yeah, there's very little clearance there with that existing road structure to go underneath. You could widen it. I'm not sure. That would be something that others would need to look at, I guess.
You're not allowed to widen brooks, though.
Yeah, go through big water course alteration, something.
You can't,
but yeah,
can't do that.
yeah.
No, I just was going to mention that. But if we're getting storm water into our system, that's causing major water into our.
Yeah, and every sanitary sewer system accounts for a certain amount of inflow and infiltration. It's called I&I, and it's built into every design. So what we're trying to do is reduce that. We don't have a measure of how much that is. We have an estimate, just like every other municipality, every other sewer system has for I&I and inflow and infiltration. But trying to cut it down as much as possible is always a good thing, and that's what we're going to look at as part of this capital project before year's end, fiscal year's end. Sorry.
Don't. Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, just one thing I'd like to say on that, if I could, is that I did ask for the last 2 years what we did pay out, and so I'm hoping that we'll get that soon to show just how many dollars we're putting out on this. This is, and if we went back further, holy wishing, it would like you scare you what we're paying out. So there's got to be a solution somewhere. I mean, there's got to be.
Okay, we'll move on. Next is streetlights approval for 1909 and 1923 Fraser Mountain Road. It's moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Count of my nay. Motion carried. Any motions of reconsideration? Seeing none. Community announcements. Is there any community announcements? Councillor Boyles.
Just like to say that on Tuesdays and Thursday nights at 7 o'clock, we have Stuart Barkley. He's 5th degree, and I can't remember the kind of martial arts this is shoot Joe or something, martial arts, but he gives classes for the month of March. It's free. After that, I think it's $50 a month for a student to enroll. But he, again, he's there from 7 until 9 o'clock on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So.
Okay. Anybody else? Any community announcements? Seeing none, I'll call the meeting adjourned. I would have had it faster too. Yeah. Brother wasn't there.